Hi everybody, this is going to be a video on how to build the armor pictured, which is known as Lorica Segmentata. Now this was Roman armor, and it was in use for quite some time, and was made popular around the time of Julius Caesar and Augustus. And for SCA purposes, it is some of the best armor that I reckon a new person can make. So we're going to go from all of these patterns here to a Corbridge Type A Lorica Segmentata. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is cut out your pattern. Now on the pattern provided there should be a scale, and it should be in inches. So you just need to, on your whatever you're using to print it out, do a couple of trial and error and see how big your scale is compared to, say, a ruler, and that's an inch there. I don't know if I can do it, but if I can, I will provide a link with already scaled patterns for a Word document, because that's how I did it. So when you're building Segmentata, there's two main things that you need to be aware of in terms of how the armor functions. So, I won't lie, there is a mobility issue over the shoulders, but that can be solved with, well, I have it sitting on the left, which it slides all the way up. Over on the right hand side, which is why I'm making this new set of Lorica, it always catches on the hinge there. So, what you have to be aware of is that these hinges here on the interior lower guard need to be lower profile, and these ones can be as high a profile as you like. So that's why I'm going to go with these nice pretty hinges that have quite a bit of meat to them, and then on the lower hinges I'm going to do something much more low profile. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Okay, so once you've got all your pieces cut out, the first bit that you want to assemble is the lower shoulder guards, which have attached to them the breastplate and the top back plate. Now with these, you want the most low profile hinges that you can find or make. I have over here already built the upper shoulder guard because I wanted to see how the hinges would turn out, and they turned out well, reasonably, but you can see they're quite chunky, which is okay because there's nothing on top of these. But where these will sit is right there on that, and you want these to be able to slide over top partially, because that's what will happen when you lift your arm up. They will slide partially over. So you want these low profile hinges. This is just a forget what it was, but it was from Bunnings and it's stainless steel, and you want that to sit in there like that. And get a side view, that's about as low profile as you're going to get, which is perfect. Alright, so we've got all of our hinges in together, and have a look at the rivets that I've put in. I've actually ground them down, and how I've done that is I've undone this here drill bit. Nope. I've undone the drill bit. I've put the nail on this that I'm using as the rivet. This is really hard to do one hand. Probably because I'm going the wrong way. Alright. And then we've got him in the drill bit. We take him turn the grinding wheel on, and then when we turn the grinding wheel on, nice uniformly flat rivet head. Alright, it's just started raining here, so I don't know how well this is going to go, but yeah. So I've assembled and bent all of the pieces that we're going to need into shape. So we've got the lower shoulder guard here. You need to bend this to be roughly the same curvature as the shoulder along the top here, where it sits on your shoulder, up here. And it's best if you bend that corner and that corner down a bit, so that when it sits on your shoulder, it actually sits slightly to the side like that, because that's how it needs to sit. The breastplate needs a slight curve in it, nothing too serious, just a very slight curve in it. And the back plate you can leave flat. You can curve it slightly, it doesn't matter too much unless it's digging into your shoulder blade as you're doing stuff. But that's a tweak that you can make later very easily. Once you've done this, the lower shoulder guard, you will need to bend your third and fourth lesser shoulder guard into shape. These do not need serious shaping, as I had on my other one. They were quite shaped to my arm, and they need to be able to slide across your arm, because if they don't, then they give you scars across your bicep, which I currently have. So what I've done is I've disregarded the pattern for the third lesser shoulder guard, so that it looks more like the lorica that appears on Hadrian's column. So this one was, I think, 54 centimeters long. This one was no, this one was 48 centimeters long. This one was 36 centimeters long, and this one was 24 centimeters long. So I've graduated it down so that this is a halfway point. And these need to be curved enough that they will sit on top of your upper shoulder guard nicely, and these need to match roughly the curvature that you've put into your lower shoulder guard, so that when you've got these two pieces here together, they can float past each other freely without catching, because that means that you can do nice stuff like throw javelins and not get impeded shoulder movements like I had, which is not nice. So we'll put that together and see how it looks. So once you get all your bits cut out, you want to make your hinges. So you take your hinge pattern and you put it on your piece, whatever you're working on. I've gone with more 16 gauge aluminium here, mainly because it's what I have been using. It's soft cut with these hand shears, and I wanted them to be chunky because I had to replace a couple of the hinges on my last one because they weren't thick enough. But if you got that, you put him in your vise here, and you want to bend him to about 90 degrees. Take him out of the vise, and you'll get a piece of whichever size pin that you want in your hinge. You stick him in there, and then you stick him back in the vise and bend him all the way around. And I'll show you what that looks like when it's done. Now that you've got your piece, you've got a hinge halve here. What you need to do is you need to, well, stick him in your vise and then cut out all the bits around him so that he looks like this. Well, like that. So what I like to do is I just put him in the vise and I use the angle grinder to get him rough to shape. Cut out the interior bits with this pointed file, I don't know what that's called. Get into all the tight spots like that and that with this triangular file. Square everything off and clean him up with this file. and then do the teeth with this one, because this is the right size for the teeth. So this is what it looks like when I've hit it with the grinder. That's its rough shape, and that's what it looks like when I've finished it up with the file. So all I do to go from here to here is I take this file and I attack this section in there with this file, and I attack that section with the file here to produce the nice sharp part in there, and then I finish them all up with this file, smooth them all out, and that is ready to be brushed up and all removed, and then holes drilled and the back end toothed in, and I'll show you how I do that as well. So the light isn't perfect, but I've got one half and the other half here. So what I now need to do is I need to take this here square file and produce halves like this that have got teeth. So this bottom one here is slightly larger, so I'll get away with having that offset there if I make this the 2-teethed one and this one the 3-teethed one. So all I'm doing is I'm taking the file here and then cutting out inserts. Alrighty, so now we've got our two hinge halves, and they fit together like so. And you want to make sure that when they're together and you've got a pin through them, they rotate freely without biting or pinching anywhere. So what I'm going to do, and what I like to do, is because this is the right size for the pin to go inside, it will always be a little bit tight. So I get the next size up from the shank here, and then I drill it all the way through. And that means that the shank will always rotate freely inside it. So, yeah. And this is why you always test your fit before you go too far with the pin. Right now it's currently biting at this point right here, but not at these ones. So what I suspect, what has happened is, as I've hammered the tops down to form much more of a circular shape, it's formed a little ridge there and on the other side there. So as it comes over, it grounds. So how you fix that is you then take these parts of the teeth down even further so that there's no chance at all that they can catch. And there you go, nice and freely floating now. That's where you want to have it. So next, what you want to do, you want to take the top of that pin there, you take the pin out, and you want to stick him in a vise, or if you've got a piece of high carbon steel, drill a hole in it, that's the diameter of the shank, and hold him in the vise, and you want to pane the top out so that it's not too big. I'm going to pane the top out so that it's just too big to fit through the pinhole that you've made. And that's the top of our pin. So all I did there was just a couple of light taps with a ball peen hammer, walked it all around. Doesn't take a lot of force, you don't need to go real hard on it. All you need is just that little lip over the top there. Now you get your hinge, you test the fit again, make sure that you haven't bent the shank. If you bend the shank, it will become much harder to move around, so just be really careful of that. Now what you do is you get your side cutters, and you cut him off just a little bit up, so I'll show you in just a moment. And then you'll pane that over, and then there's your hinge done. And then you just need to drill the holes and attach him. So you can see here, there's still a little bit left at the top. I like to leave the burr on because it's easier to pane over. But then all you do is you take him over to your anvil, and then you bash him just really nicely with a ball peen hammer. there you have it. That's your hinge. Now what you want to be careful of is when you've got him on the anvil and you're belting him on the top, you always want to make sure that he's straight up and down and you're not working him too hard. Because if you work him too hard and he bends, your hinge bends and then it locks up around halfway. And you don't want that at all. Now you can see, got a nice tight hinge. It doesn't bend from side to side very much. And yeah, doesn't look too bad either. So all I'm going to do now is buck him up on the wire wheel, drill some holes here, here and here, and then attach him. That's done. And there we have it. Shoulder piece is fully assembled, the upper shoulder piece, upper shoulder guard, fully assembled. And it's pretty flexible, which is what you want. You don't want it to be too unflexible. Even though it doesn't move too much, it rarely goes out of that sort of position, you do want it to be flexible. Just one thing to note, when you're attaching your rivets to leather, you'll always need a spacer, because you can't rivet something that's not at all solid to something that is. So all that is, just a piece of aluminium, with a hole drilled in it. There it is. Don't have to be pretty, I'm just making mine pretty rough, because they don't need to be anything fancy. And then it saves time as well. And you just made them up and then you rivet like that. That's all there is to it. So, just a few things to note. I am about a third of the way through completing the right hand shoulder section. You want all of these rivetings here to be just hanging onto the edge of all of their respective pieces, so that when you lift your arm up, say vertically, they can slide backwards like that onto the last one and bunch up. If you have them too close together, then that can't happen and you won't get any leather articulation happening. And the second thing to note is that when you do the back piece here, because this is the back piece, don't rivet that rivet until you've put this strap of leather on here. So what I tend to do is make it excessively long, that way I know I've got plenty to work with. And when you are putting the hole in for here, don't do it until you've got this rivet and this rivet in, because that means that if this is too high, you have to drill a new hole, or if it's too low, you have to drill another hole, etc, etc. So don't put the hole in here until this is in place. Okie dokie. Now we've finished the right hand shoulder. So how it should look is that these should be slightly suspended so that they can move relatively freely. Now I've built this out of aluminium, 16 gauge aluminium, mainly because my last one was built out of 2mm stainless, and that caused some issues with weight, so I'm going the complete opposite direction with this one. The main issue with that is it doesn't quite hang properly at the shoulder guards, because these shoulder guards should hang a bit lower than they do. But the rest of it is fine. The back section is nice, and the front section looks good.